So if you're a brand or advertiser and you spend money on media and you expect something from that, you think of it as an investment that can drive growth, then if media is not working very well, it's a loss of competitive advantage, right? You're wasting dollars that are not being effective in achieving the business outcomes that you want. Worst case scenario, your competitors in your category have figured it out and they're doing better than you. Every dollar that they invest is working harder. So your main focus in any media thinking is how do we make every single dollar we invest work harder? Hi, I'm Tom Denford and I'm in New York.
And I'm David Indo and I'm in London.
I spent a decade as a global executive for agencies like WPP, Omnicom and Publicis.
And I spent a decade as a senior marketeer managing media for powerful brands like Coca-Cola and Nike.
And 15 years ago, we came together to create ID.Comms, the world's first specialist media advisory and analytics consultancy. And today the company spans 14 time zones and we serve dozens and dozens of iconic brands around the world.
This is our show Media Snack, where we share our bite-sized expert view on how procurement and marketing leaders are winning in media today.
We appreciate you tuning in and we're excited to dive into today's show.
All right, Tom, so what's going on?
Well, we'll continue to talk about the Omnicom-IPG potential merger, which is, getting more potential as the year goes on. And every month, we make some developments, but also we are developing our perspective on it. And, we've talked before in previous episodes about this, Omnicom and IPG merger and the impact it's going to have for the industry. There's a real strategic reason behind it, which we've touched on before, but I think today I want to go a bit deeper on that. And that is that the agencies, certainly at the big holding company levels, and you're talking about the big 5 or 6 networks around the world, their fundamental underlying kind of business model is changing. And that's the thing as an advertiser, we've really got to be aware of. The Omnicom merger is really a great warning sign for advertisers to be aware of. And we've touched on it before. If you want to get more, dig deeper into this, we'll flash it up a few times probably in the episode, but go to idcomms.com/Omnicom. We've dedicated a page to all the resources that we're collecting on this with some guidance and some ideas of strategies that you can take to navigate safely and effectively and hopefully profitably through this. But the underlying business model of agencies is changing. And actually, in a couple of years' time, we might question whether we even call them agencies at all, because they're moving from a service model, which is that they're a service that you pay for, then they buy and plan your media and maybe report back some of the stuff that's happened. Increasingly moving from a service model to a sales model, which is that this idea of agencies pre-buying media in this principle or they call it inventory based. It all sounds very kind of innocuous when they call it principle based media buying, but it's essentially an arbitrage game. They're buying media in advance, and that's okay. That's their legitimate business practice to do that, and then reselling it hopefully for a profit. So they're taking maybe a bit of a risk in doing that, and they expect a good oversized return in response. You can see how as more and more agencies do that at a huge scale, it really starts to become more of a brokering service. Those big 3 or 4 agencies are starting to actually own a really significant stake in the media inventory that's being sold. And so we can see fast forward, as an enlarged Omnicom, a strong Publicis, and maybe a stronger, even stronger WPP as it kind of gets back on its feet. The 3 of them are really going to dominate the media trading model in the future. And we think that media buying, if we can call it media buying, or media selling, is going to be dominated by giant companies, 2 or 3 giant companies. So it does beg a question, which we'll touch on another time. What then is the role of the other agencies, the other hundreds of agencies that come in the supply, in the longer tail, from very big agencies like a Dentsu, Horizon, Stagwell, those kind of, what's going to happen to them. We'll talk about that another time. And the hundreds and hundreds of other independent agencies in markets around the world. There will be implications from them. But if we focus on the scale, those 2 or 3 companies really evolve to become brokers of media. So as an advertiser, your relationship with these agencies will change over time because they can't be both the buyer and the seller of media. At some point, that, as we keep saying, that's got to shift to a dominant position. And I think it's inevitable at this point that these agencies will be mostly sales and reduced in terms of service. And we mean in terms of those agency services. If we just refer back quickly, we'll flash it up on screen, what we call the media merger matrix that we've been sharing with dozens or maybe hundreds of advertisers now so far this year. If you can see, like below the line, we're talking the line in the middle here. These are advertisers that are generally not happy, or they're not sure they're with the right agency long term, or maybe they just need to refresh. Then this is really your window of opportunity. Is about a 6 to 18 month window of opportunity to do a couple of things that could be beneficial to your business. One is to update your contract terms for the future by either renegotiating or pitching. Contract terms are really important to update, and I think we'll do an episode really more specifically digging into these things. Is updating for technology and particularly AI as well. So we need to kind of refresh on the agency's use and limitations on using AI. Offshoring of talent, so that's offshoring of services. Big thing at the moment with agencies trying to provide their services from cheaper places in the world to try and find additional margin. And also the protecting of human capital, protecting of talent, the real key talent that has an positive impact on the business. That's important for contract terms. Secondly, securing improved commercial terms. So consolidation of agencies does create value, and as an advertiser, you want to get your fair share of that. So that's a good opportunity to negotiate securing that. Thirdly, we're seeing and helping a lot of advertisers define the best operating model for them. In this changing landscape, where the role of agencies is questionable, maybe some are deciding to in-house a little bit more. Again, topic for another time. There's always more things to talk about. Also, integration of creative with media. Where does production sit in the world of AI? There's a lot of disruption going on, but opportunities for the right strategy. And it's triggering a relook at the KPIs for success for media. Not just cost. And I think we'll talk about this a bit later in the episode as well. Not just cost, but really optimizing for effectiveness. So how not to lose at the moment is, if you're an advertiser, understand where the market is going. Okay.
Yeah.
Understand,
and also where your spend profile is going as well. So I think what you said is really, really important. The reason that these organizations are aggregating spend as much as they possibly can, because if I'm an advertiser, I'm looking at my spend profile migrating at a rate of knots to 4 media owners, 4 media platforms in the world: Alphabet, which is Google and YouTube; Meta, which is obviously Meta and Instagram; TikTok and Amazon. Right, those are my 4 core pillars of media investment now and increasingly moving forward. Now, those are media owners that my agency or I can have direct joint business plans with. And the more aggregated value that you can have as an agency, the more incremental value and innovation and all the nice bells and whistles that you can offer to your clients. You may not be able to give them the discounts that you once could, because they're traded in a different way, but certainly you can offer them value through an understanding of proprietary media and the margins that you take in exchange for other things, but also in the adjacent benefits that you get by being a priority agency with these massive, huge, gigantic media owners.
Yep.
And I would want, if I'm a client, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, well, I understand that the agencies have a different operating model now. They have to. But where do I get my benefits in that? Where do I get my little incremental pieces of value or innovation or technological kind of forward thinking that I didn't get before, but I'm getting it now because my agency is a dominant player within these kind of media owners.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the path forward. Refer to the matrix. Go to idcoms.com/omnicom. There's lots of comms in there. idcoms.com/omnicom. Because it's where we're putting all of these ideas and trying to help advertisers pick the right path forward. Being on that side of scale a negotiation has huge advantages, but there are some risks that come with that, as we've touched on. So educate yourself, go to that URL, learn more, and keep following along. We'll be doing this every week, every month, certainly through the year, and I'm sure beyond. So now we move into our how to win segment. And this week we're talking about how big advertisers with big spending are seeing small results. David, what is going on?
Well, this is really interesting, Tom. I spend most of my time, as you know, most of my spare time, when I'm not running ID comms with you, speaking to advertisers, speaking to media leaders across the world, both clients of ours and not clients of ours, because I'm fascinated by the world that they operate in and the challenges that they have. And at the end of almost every conversation that I have, I ask them one question. If you had a magic button on your desk that would have a material impact, a positive impact on your business, what would it be and what would you be changing? And almost without exception, they all have the same answer. And that is a clearer understanding of what my return on my investment is, what my ROAS is, or return on media investment is. And I find that fascinating as more and more money migrates towards digital platforms where you've got an abundance of data, where technology is cutting edge, where you have precision marketing and precision targeting to understand exactly where your message is going, to which person, when, and what the impact of that is. Why is the biggest question that marketeers are asking? What is my return of that investment? And I find it absolutely fascinating. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that, thinking about that, and helping our clients get a better steer on defining ROAS and why, for many advertisers, there is a major problem in putting a figure on it. So Tom, what are the implications? What's going on?
Well, the implications of that, if you believe that media is an investment in growth, so if you're a brand or advertiser and you spend money on media and you expect something from that, you think of it as an investment that can drive growth, then if media is not working very well, it's a loss of competitive advantage, right? You're wasting dollars that are not being effective in achieving the business outcomes that you want. And worst case scenario, your competitors in your category have figured it out and they're doing better than you. Every dollar that they invest is working harder. That is a horrible spiral to be in if your dollars are not working hard enough. So your main focus in any media thinking is how do we make that every single dollar we invest work harder? Okay, that's what we do. That's why we exist. We help brands do that. That's the kind of implication. What's going wrong? There's probably three things, I think. First thing is there's such complexity, which has become such a cliche, but there's such complexity, particularly in biddable media. So programmatic search, social, and now retail, bit of influencer spend. There's complexity in the background of all of this stuff. Marketers need to at least appreciate the complexity. They don't necessarily need to know everything. But they need to appreciate the complexity and they need to make decisions in the context of that. At the moment, a lot of marketers are really trusting their agencies and the supply chain, which is fine because it comes from a position of trust. These are our objective and trusted business partners, but there's really not enough objective oversight across agencies and then the supply chain. Okay, at the moment, not enough marketers, in our view, understand the complexity sufficiently to keep an oversight or governance over that supply chain. There's lack of transparency that it could be improved, and we try and help marketers improve transparency. Secondly, there's a bit of an over-reliance on, a major over-reliance, I think, on outdated measurements. Traditional media auditing is not working. It's stuck in this era of broadcast, and we are way beyond that. So that definitely for most brands needs to be significantly upgraded. If you're auditing media and you're still kind of working in traditional media auditing ways, then let's stop, rethink, and get ready for auditing in the biddable world. Because we're seeing more and more advertisers are figuring out how to do that. We provide the service to many advertisers. If you're measuring in a broadcast era, you can't have a mindset in a future in a programmatic and biddable world. So that's the second thing, is to kind of update how you hold your spend accountable. And the third, I think, and really important as well, is an over-reliance or an overtrust that platform algorithms are going to do the right thing for your brand.
Yes,
because they're
exactly.
taking control away from you as a marketer. So just assuming that you kind of put your money into these big platforms and it works for you is quite a scary idea. So you need to kind of think, does this really work for my brand? Really, the supply chain, it really optimizes outcomes for the supply chain. There's a lot of people that touch your money, and the outcomes will be inevitably skewed a little bit by what's right for the supply chain, what's right for the agency, or the different kind of vendors that touch your money. It's not entirely optimized for your business. And again, that's a service that we often provide to brands, is objective view of how to optimize investment, particularly in biddable, how to optimize that investment to drive your business metrics, okay, rather than optimizing for profitability of ad tech or the supply chain or agencies. And the pure fact is that the financial incentives are not always aligned through that supply chain, i.e. not everybody is entirely incentivized to deliver for you, the brand. Whereas we think that's really important. So we just earn from the brands, and that's really important. And when those things are misaligned, as we know, it can create strain. It will create strain between the advertiser and their agencies if they're not aligned on the same KPIs. And as we've spoken about already in this episode, in the first segment, if anything, agencies' kind of alignment is moving slightly away from or further away from the brands. So that's a risk. So the risks of not doing here is kind of wasted dollars that are not working hard enough, and then loss of competitive advantage in your category. That's really what it's all about. And there's a huge opportunity to get it right. Great. So David, let's think about how marketers can get this right. Tell us about maybe some example, or give us an example of how a marketer has addressed exactly this thing in our experience.
Yeah. Well, the marketers that are most effective in this area do one thing first. They change their mindset from cost control to value control. So they shift the emphasis, especially on biddable media, from simply managing costs to driving value, driving growth. And that's really important, because that narrative permeates not only their own internal teams, but importantly, their agency teams that are responsible for managing the media. Thereafter, they then have to impose governance protocols that enable that to happen. And I'm going to give you an example in a second of how that works really well. These governance protocols, in terms of managing and overseeing biddable spend, need to focus on three things. They need to focus on transparency, making sure that you as an advertiser have visibility on where your money is going throughout the supply chain. That's the first thing. The second thing is around quality. You need to make sure that you're buying good inventory, and that it's not going to bot farms, and that it's not going to non-human wasted money. As I said to you, I've said to you lots of times, Tom, the thing that would drive me bonkers if I was an advertiser now would be the potential for wasted money, just burning money by it going to non-human traffic. So making sure you've got the quality aspects. But then the third bit, and this is the bit that's really, really important. This is the bit that delivers competitive advantage, is making sure that you have oversight over the optimization of that media money. You talked earlier on about many advertisers relinquishing complete control to their agencies. And actually what they do is they relinquish complete control to the algorithm. So the algorithm just buys the media. Now, what we are missing there is the craft of buying, the craft of the trader that would buy the media, that would optimize the media. And if you don't put optimization governance protocols in place, that will continue to happen. We have one global retailer, and it's a prime example because actually the results came out fairly recently, that were concerned that their online retail investments weren't working hard enough. And they had a benchmark that they were trying to hit in terms of return on investment, and it wasn't coming through. It was actually significantly lower than their benchmarks that they kind of set. They asked us to go in and have a look at their campaign management, And we did those three things. We looked at the transparency, and actually the transparency was fairly good. They had good visibility on the supply chain. They weren't duplicating too many costs within that area. We tightened one or two little bits and pieces, but generally they were very good. The quality of their inventory was also fairly good. There was minimal non-human traffic going through, and so they were maximizing their working capital. The big problem was in the optimization. So we took their campaigns, we looked at it through the lens of experienced traders, and we found that we could deliver an uplift of 30% within that working capital. And we are expecting, when we then do the results again in the next month or two, to see a significant uplift in terms of the impact that 30% optimization has had on the entire campaign results. So most audits, most proper governance protocols look at transparency and the quality of your media.
Yeah.
What our approach does, what digital control does, is also focus on the optimization. And that's where the magic happens.
That was a great case study as well, because the money that they're investing is just working harder. It's just linking to a business outcome. And then you can start to really see a better return on investment, which is what we, as you said, it's what would keep you awake, or does keep a client, advertisers awake at night. So excellent. Listen, it's a really good topic. We'll do more on this. Learn more about digital control. If you go to idcoms.com, you can learn more about that approach to biddable, auditing biddable that helps you optimize spend to a business outcome. It really is the future, and we're focusing advertisers on really looking at that. If this is the kind of impact that you're looking for as a brand, some of the things that we've described, then our consultant team can help you. And so you can certainly reach out, schedule a call with us. And that's often the difference for a lot of brands, for a media that just kind of runs through the supply chain and stuff that then is optimized to perform for your business. That's competitive advantage. And we love unlocking that for brands. So, please do schedule a call with us. That is it. Great advice. Thank you, David.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Media Snack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review and remember to like and subscribe on YouTube.
And we love hearing your comments, so please don't be shy in the comments section below.
That's it for now. See you next time on Media Snack.